Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the jump seat today. Dave, how you doing?
I'm well. I'm well. How are you, John?
Also doing good today. For those joining the jump seat for the first time, it's a weekly spotlight bringing you key industry insights, subject matter experts, and industry trends affecting both you and your fire department. Hosted by two jump seat firefighters, myself, John, and Dave. And as always, we're here to bring something interesting today. And so before we go any further, Dave, I think we got some happenings in the fire service. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, we actually do. And John, it's quite appropriate that I'm having network connectivity issues again here. And so for those of you guys who don't know, John and I were running just a couple minutes late, and I have to apologize. That's actually my fault because I'm getting walloped outside right now with a crazy thunderstorm. So you never know how it's going to go and what's going to happen when you do these things virtually over the web. So it looks like I think I got my network connection back up. So I'm on two different networks trying to isolate things here right now. But anyway, so happenings in the fire service. I think probably one of the biggest things right now, John, is California burning. Right? It's been pretty crazy out there, and I think hats off to all those wildland firefighters. For those of you who don't know, or haven't spent much time in the wildland world, it's crazy. It's crazy out there. And
Yep.
so Cal Fire gets they've got a great tool out here that you can actually be happening with their incidents. You can go to fire.cal.gov, and it's just in the amount of time that has actually been going on these fires out west here. Really, it's just the last couple of weeks. And I think here's a quick summary for the state of California that I brought up for everybody to take a peek at. The wildland fire started out there August 28th. Excuse me, that's today. They started like 2 weeks ago, excuse me. They've burnt in total an area over the size of the state of Delaware. What's crazy is, John, you and I, we talked about bringing this up last week on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And you remember on Thursday when we do our pre-planning for the show, we get together. Remember, it was half the state of Rhode Island at that point.
That's right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And in one day, just in overnight, there was a massive amount of what they call dry lightning strikes, and it increased that actually between the winds and these dry lightning strikes that they actually had now burnt within 24 hours. Another half of the state of Rhode Island. And so the total fire spread had actually covered a massive span. And if you think about that, that's a big area. Rhode Island's big, let alone now, another week later, that we've got the entire state of Delaware. And, there's, 14,600 firefighters today in the state of California alone. And if we think that's crazy, and actually since August 15th, when this started, there's been nearly 14,000 lightning strikes. And wildland fires create that crazy weather pattern of their own, and it just continues to spawn additional fires. So we think it's bad in California. Here's another great tool that I like to reach out to, and this is actually InstaWeb through the U.S. Forest Service, and so it gives another look. And this is actually a great tool. You can actually zoom in on these and look at specific fires if you want to, and you can actually see them variously burning throughout the country. You can go and actually click on one and get the details on that incident as well. And obviously, you guys are seeing my great internet lag that's occurring right now. And I apologize for that. But it's definitely a cool thing to check out if you want to follow all the activities out there. And so I think the biggest thing I just wanted to have as a takeaway, John, was, be safe out there to those wildland guys. And for all the structural firefighting guys who don't dabble in the wildland world, hats off to you guys out there, because we get to ride on a truck to the fire. You get dropped off on the side of the road and go hiking. For those of you who may follow me personally on Facebook, or even follow Fire Department Chronicles, Jason Patton, we had him on a few weeks ago. He threw out a great thing for the wildland guys as a little tribute to those who maybe underappreciate what it is that 14,600 firefighters in the state of California are doing right now. So thank you all for doing what you can do to protect nature and being away from your families for this extended period of time.
Yeah,
And keep up the good work. I don't know, John.
definitely.
What are your thoughts? You got anything to add to it?
No, I don't. I think you said it. It'll be interesting to see where we are a week from now and what's going on, what the weather does. That's a big piece here too, and obviously we got manpower there. So I hope everybody stays safe. I think it's time we switch gears here. We've got some exciting stuff to talk about. I'm going to introduce our guest here in a moment. For those, let's see, we've had a couple discussions now over the last 19 regarding water flow and handline nozzles a little bit, but today we're actually going to talk about considerations when combining nozzles with hose. It's right. It's a package. It's a unit. It's a fluid critical piece of our truck and how we do our daily jobs, and they go together. So we're going to actually bring some of those things in. So I'd like to go ahead and bring in our guest here. His name is Richard Ray. Richard Ray comes to us from Durham, North Carolina, as well as Creedmoor Volunteer Fire Department. I wanted to give him a chance here to introduce himself. So Richard, welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got in the fire service.
Thank you guys for having me. Like a lot of individuals in the fire service today, I kind of grew up around the fire department. My granddad was the chief here in Creedmoor for a number of years, and then my dad obviously was a member, and then he became chief. And my dad's still going strong at 55 years of service so far. So,
wow,
yeah. So for me, I grew up around it, and I enjoyed it. Didn't really know if I was going to choose it as a career path. I wasn't real sure what I was going to do, when you go to college. So I was in college and did some training one day, and it just clicked, hey, this is what I want to do. Finished my college up, continued with my career in the volunteer side. Got hired with the city of Durham. Was very blessed there. And so today I'm a battalion chief with the city of Durham. Rose through the ranks there. I've done a little bit of everything from fire academy training to field training, recruits and that kind of stuff. And spent the bulk of my time on an engine company, which I believe is where it's at. And, so that's kind of my career. As far as the volunteer side goes, like I said, it's been a family thing. And, I hold the rank of captain, which is kind of a fun thing for me because I still get to fight fire and do the fun stuff. And with Creedmoor, I'm a little more watching with when I'm with Durham. So that's kind of how I landed in the fire service. So
that's great. And for those who don't know, he normally teaches at FDIC, and if I'm not mistaken, you were supposed to be there this year, but obviously we had some difficult circumstances keep all of us from FDIC. So hopefully next year we can catch you there again. What topics were you going to talk about this past year, or I guess this year if they would have had it?
So typically with FDIC is I focus on the volunteer side of the service. I feel like a lot of times, it's the career guys, they have a lot to offer and share. And I just feel like that, sometimes the volunteers kind of get not necessarily left behind, but there's just not a lot of offering for it. So my big thing is the fire ground. Delivering water on the fire ground operations. So this past year, I was going to talk about, which is the class I'm going to teach next year, is tactical considerations for volunteer fire departments. And I'm going to talk about 15 different things that I think are important to focus on the fire ground so that, one, you'll win on the fire ground, you'll provide the best service to the citizen, and you'll keep your members safe and efficient. So, that's what, when I'm speaking at FDIC, that's what I speak on the volunteers. So I enjoy it. It's it keeps me grounded because that's where my roots are. That's where I got started. And I'm a firm believer that if you lose sight of where you come from, you can never see where you're going to go. So, it's I enjoy it. So, yeah. And as far as the teaching goes, I would be remiss if I left out the fact that, when I first started the instruction side of it, the whole intent was just to learn the job better, because I felt like that if you're going to teach it, you have to know it. And I felt like that was a good way for me to to know the job better, and to be able to share. Because I think about when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, the number of folks that shared with me when they didn't have to, and they gave back to me. And so that I'm just trying to pay it forward, because I believe in making the service better and leaving it better than I found it. So,
Richard, I think you said it well, and that's an ideal reason why you're here on the jump seat today with both John and I. And we think kind of holistically about that, and really I think we're all on the same page. Is how can we leave it better than we found it? And I think, John, we're pretty lucky because we get a chance to go out and work with a lot of great guys just like you, Richard. And it's great to actually have had a chance to get to know you better as we prepared for the show, but also to understand that really today's topic, these tactical considerations when choosing handline nozzles and hose packages, is something that you may have a little bit of passion about. And so I am glad to bring it here to you today and really help to focus in on one of your passions, but really to bring some knowledge and expand on, what are those things that are out there for the fire service to understand. So, why did you choose? I mean, we talked about a number of different things that we could talk about, and really you focused in on this topic. And so why did you choose nozzles and hose combinations for us today?
So, I was pretty fortunate back in 2001 to take a hot class at FDIC with a gentleman by the name of Andy Fredericks. And Andy took a lot of time with me. I was a young kid. He didn't know me from anybody. He just knew that I was a student there. And he shared with me about water delivery and understanding hose and nozzles much more in depth and much greater detail than anything that I've ever learned before. And what struck me was here's a guy from the FDNY, and I'm just a young kid from North Carolina that he doesn't know, but yet he took the time to share with me. And the reason why it strikes with me is that I recognized at the time I was trying to figure out how to improve the fire ground, how to improve our fire attack package, how to make things better, not only just here in Creedmoor, but also in Durham. And, so he took time with me, answered a lot of questions, and I kind of built from that. And it became one of the areas of focus when I would teach, especially in recruit school and that kind of stuff, because I understand what the truck does on the fire ground, but ultimately our job is to put water on the fire, because when we get good water on the fire, everything gets better. So the importance of that water delivery is just something that I found a passion in that was created by the late Andy Fredericks. And so that's kind of where I'm at today. And it was, there's been a lot of other mentors along the way too that have really worked with me and helped me to come to understand the hose and nozzle package better. So that's how I found my passion, if you will.
Well, I think it's great, and I'm glad you're able to share it with us today. And Andy Frederick was a great guy, and obviously he's educated a lot of folks in the fire service. So thank you to Andy and to all those. So when it comes to hose and nozzles, I think about my volunteer department, particularly when we relate in the volunteer world. Do I need to do something special for my department to be effective with hose and nozzles?
Absolutely. So one of the things that, we struggled here in Creedmoor, we struggled in Durham. One of the things that we didn't identify right out of the gate is what was our target flow. With both of the organizations, we have what I call a small line and a big line, which is the 1 3/4 and the 2 1/2. And nobody could really tell me, well, what are we trying to achieve on the fire ground out of each one of those lines? A lot of responses that I got, well, water comes out at the end of it, that's good enough. And if it's not putting the fire out, go to the bigger line. Well, that's all well and good, but still there's an understanding there. And so when you start looking at your hose and nozzle package, I think the first place you start is with a flow meter and understanding, are you achieving what you think you are? Are you achieving that desired target flow? And if not, how can you go about doing that? And the hard part is that a lot of times you'll go to a training somewhere, or you'll see something, or you'll hear a podcast that might say, well, this hose and nozzle combination is what you need. This is what you should be using. And that's great. But that's not very practical a lot of times for everybody. Fire departments have very limited budgets. Hose and nozzles are expensive when you start talking about replacing the entire complement of your hose. So I think you have to begin with the equipment that you have, understand how it's performing, understand how to manage it, flow test it, see where you are, because I believe when you flow test your equipment, you're going to find out you're not exactly where you think you might be. I know that in Durham, when we worked to change our hose and nozzle package, it was years upon years of flow testing, looking at what we got, refining, because we weren't on a limited budget. We were trying to make our tools work. And, the problem that we ran into was that, we opted to move to the smoothbore nozzles. We opted to move to the lower pressure fog nozzles. And we were getting in trouble because the two didn't match. And some of the things that we encountered were the hose kinking just off the coupling. We experienced some nozzle whip. And we got a video I want to show you that we did. This was some training I did a couple years back, where we were explaining the difference of making sure your hose and nozzle combination matches. And it was a low pressure fog designed to be utilized with a hose that was constructed to be used with 100 PSI nozzle. So take a look at it. So when we got started, the whole process was just to merely show it. And what happens is that when your equipment doesn't match, and that happens inside of a fire, or that happens to your personnel, that's how people get hurt. That's how we lose efficiency on the fire ground. And so that matching combination became really important for me. And like I said, so we started working with it. We even started here in my volunteer department. We moved over to some smooth bores, and we experienced the same thing there. And it was a slow process. We just recently this year in Creedmoor changed all of our hose over to match our low pressure stuff. So we were dealing with low pressure nozzles, high pressure hose, if you will, and it just wasn't very efficient, and it was tough on our personnel, and they always complained about it. So that was kind of what started the in-depth study, the in-depth look at it. How can we make it better? And for your department, that's what you've got to do. You've got to get out there. You've got to flow your equipment. You've got to work with it. And if you don't understand, reach out to their subject matter experts in the field. I'm certainly not one of them. But there are those that you can reach out to that can work with you and explain it. The hose manufacturers will be glad to talk to you. Nozzle companies will be glad to talk to you and explain to you what's going on.
I was just going to ask real quick on the topic of hose, in a quick minute here, what have you seen change over the last, even few years, not decades, but years just in this? Because we do see more low pressure, right, than we did a few years ago. And the impact that hose has in that. What have you seen out in the field or at training classes? Where's that stuff going?
So it's really neat. I mean, technology is a wonderful thing, and the hose construction is changing. And some of the stuff that I've seen, though, is that with the change in the hose construction, the hose is more pliable, that kind of stuff, the lower pressure, the synthetics that they're using in the construction, we're still at times using conventional hose management methods. This was designed to be used with 100 PSI nozzles, 100 PSI hose that was really stiff. And we try and start using some of those techniques with this newer stuff, that gets us in trouble too. And that I think is part of the reason why you would get the nozzle whip factors, that people would start manipulating the nozzle, think they got to move it fast and work it like they did with older hose, and it was behaving differently. And that's that's what I've seen, and also seen where a lot of times where the nozzle kind of gets blamed for it, but the hose construction is really important. And the good thing about it is that there are a number of manufacturers out today that's making a lot of good products. Again, you have to find what works for your your organization, what's in your budget field, and what equipment you have and how to make it better that way. But that's the stuff that you see when you go around and train.
So what you're saying is there's no cookie cutter that tells you and your department how to flow water.
That's exactly right. You have to find what's best for your organization. And I believe that, your staffing doesn't dictate the size of the line. The size of the line dictates the staffing. And when you talk about that, you talk about, well, the 2.5 requires more manpower, that kind of stuff, and that's true. But you still have to know your staffing. How, what does it look like on the fire ground? How many firefighters you're going to have on an attack line, because it's different from organization to organization. And when you start looking at nozzle and hose packages, you want to start looking at something where we're getting at least 150 gallons a minute, where our nozzle reaction is less than 70 pounds, and we're somewhere in that PDP of 100 to 140 PSI. That's what you're looking for. That's kind of a goal. So you do that, and then you can start looking at what's out there, getting it in, testing it, comparing it to what you've got, and make an informed decision. Because again, each organization is different. I like to say it's the same circus, just from organization to organization, just the clowns have different faces, But every organization has challenges when it comes to a fire attack and that kind of stuff, and how many personnel they have on the line. In Creedmoor, the truth of the matter is it might be one person on the line to begin with, and in Durham, I could have as many as 4 or 5 on that initial attack line, and that's a big difference when you're talking about hose management and those types of things.
Yeah, it really does. I would ask, you brought up a good point. This is one of the things that we do as a business from an IDEX perspective, and that is, hey, call us. We'll come out and do some of that testing. We'll bring our flow meters out and help you understand what you have. And so, I think you kind of led down a path here of, hey, Dave, your department, you don't need anything special. You probably have the tools to do it. It's just a matter of the right layout, the right setup, the right pump pressures to understand what it is to get the right achieving goal. Is that right?
That's right. And something else too that you see is that we have to account for the pump itself, right? I mean, a lot of times we think that number we see on the gauge, that's the number, that's what we're looking for, but there is friction loss within these pumps, and that's why it's a total system package. And you're absolutely correct when you say layout. You've got to get out there and you've got to do the work. You've got to put in that sweat equity to figure out the layout that works best for your organization. And you've got to include all aspects of it. It's not just the hose and nozzles, but it's the truck, it's your personnel. It's a lot of things that play into it.
So what are you guys using today at, we'll go to Creedmoor. What are you using, and why did you guys choose that for your department?
So we're using FDNY spec key hose 1.88. We're utilizing a 15/16 tip. Our target flow out of that line is 185 GPMs, which we are achieving that. And it's a very manageable line. And to the point of, I'm gonna share a picture with you.
Quick, I'm sorry. Is this the picture you were going to show?
No, but that's
Okay.
that's a very similar package to what we use.
Right. I'll let you share yours. Just a second.
Okay. Let me get
there
it.
We go. Try that. Sorry, Richard.
Share screen. All right. So share. So this is our hose package that we're using in Creedmoor. This is a 15/16 smoothbore nozzle, FDNY spec 1.88, 185 GPMs. A very user-friendly line. We liked it because it was a little bit more flow than the 7/8 tip at the 160. However, that 160 flow, that's a good flow as well too. And that 7/8 tip, that's a great package to have as well. But this is what we chose. Our staffing is such that, like I said, like one firefighter that you see there, that could very well be, that could very well be what we have. So that's what we use as far as the 1 3/4 goes. So let's see here. We'll come back here. So for our 2.5, we use the True ID 2.5 for my key hose, which that is I think for organizations that are really short staffed, such as volunteers, that's a great package because we use it with a 1 inch and 1/8 tip, 265 GPMs, a manageable line. And part of having a manageable line is having a pump operator too that understands the hydraulics, that understands what they're doing, and one that's not excited and over pumping, to your setup.
Hey, John, really quick, Rich. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but what'll actually solve that problem?
I've heard of something. I cannot think of. No, I'm just kidding. It was 2 weeks ago. We had two guys that used the SAM system every shift, and they told us all about it, didn't they? Yeah.
Well, this is a great idea for Sam, and where Sam can come in and make a great play.
Yeah, and again, yes. As far as Durham goes, we use kind of the same setup. We use the key FDNY spec 1.88, 15/16 tips, and we also on our back cross lay, which is different from Creedmoor. Creedmoor, we have two smooth bores. In Durham, we have an Akron Assault 185 at 50 fog. That's a break apart nozzle and has a 15/16 slug in it. So that way there's an option if somebody wants to use the fog nozzle versus a smooth bore, but they're getting the same flow at a similar pressure, understanding that, I know that, with the break aparts and the fogs require just a little bit more at the tip to get that 185. So that's what we do. So, and I'm gonna be honest with you, it's been, I think it's been very successful. It seemed like, that we went to a lot of fire after we changed it over in Durham, but even in Durham, much like it was here in Creedmoor, we couldn't do both hose and nozzles at one time. We had to make a decision. What were we going to do first? And in Durham, we chose to go with the hose first, and then we bought the nozzles to finish out the complement. But in Creedmoor, we were pretty fortunate. We already had some of the equipment, and so the hose was just the only purchase that we made after that, which was very, very nice. So
definitely. Well, I think definitely some of the take-homes here have been that we can't always do everything at once when we put these together. We have to strategically prioritize what we need the most, but then how's it going to interact with our hose now versus later? Do we get like I said, a factory rep in to come demo and help us pre-plan, if you will, pre-plan our next couple of years of spending if that's what we're replacing, and use those gather quality data to have that together, and it sounds like you guys have done that, and I think that's definitely we're at a disadvantage if we don't approach it with that in mind. So
yeah, and one of the things that I would say is that I know we're going to share my contact info, but if anybody is interested in our study into what we've done, the notes and that kind of stuff, I'll be glad to share it with them, because again, it's all about improving our performance on the fire ground. So, like I said, reach out to me. I'll be glad to help out however I can.
Yeah, and there are a couple articles too that we will also put up here on the screen, of articles that are in fire engineering that you've compiled, data you've compiled that may be of value and along these lines. So we'll put those up for everybody. Richard, as well, just what are some of the, I guess we've got some materials here, but are there any other videos that you've seen that you would, tell people to go here for some videos? Do you have some personally from some of your testing that others can find, or?
I do, but I don't have it out on social media or anything like that.
Okay.
So, I mean, like I said, if they want to see some videos and that kind of stuff, they can certainly reach out to me, and I'll be glad to share what I've got. But I don't share any of that stuff on social media. I choose to do something different with social media. So
it's all right.
That's all good, Richard.
Yeah. and I'll say, kind of diving back a little bit when we talk about, we just didn't, for both organizations, we just didn't change the hose and nozzle combination. We also changed hose loads. You talk about that layout and looking at what best serves us in terms of hose deployment. We used to do flat loads, and now we do Minutemans. And for both my organizations, we kind of adopted the Nozzle Forward program from Aaron Fields. Aaron's out of Seattle, and he has a wonderful program. I would recommend anybody to take the Nozzle Forward program. It's probably the best in the country on hose deployment and advancement. But we chose to go with to utilize his model, and it's been pretty successful, and it's worked out really well. Which is some of the pictures that you were going to bring up there, John. That was that deployment there. So
gotcha. Good. Wow, great information.
Richard, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. I know time flies when we're having fun, and I look up and I'm like, holy cow, we've already gone through the 30 minutes in our show today. And, it's been great to have you here and share some of the information. I know you did give us your email, so I'm going to throw it up there again for everybody to take a look at, richard.ray74@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out to him. We also had those other articles I posted there before, and we'll try to get those posted as well, maybe in the comments field, so that you can you go out and take a look at those creative resources that you put together and have written for fire engineering. Richard, I just want to say it's been a pleasure preparing for the show today. And I think I'd love to have you back on here in the future. Maybe we get a little more technical. We go in and deep dive one of these things, and maybe weather will cooperate on all ends, and I won't have thunderstorms, and maybe we won't have coronavirus, and we can all do it in person, which would be great.
That would be awesome.
Don't forget hurricanes. We got those going on too.
And
wildfires.
That's how my storms are here today. So I'm getting the outer bands of those crazy storms.
So real quick, one last thing, if I may. One, I want to thank God for allowing me to be a part of this. Thank you, IDEX Corporation, John, Dave Reddick. It's very humbling for me to be on here and to be able to share, and it's not lost on me the value that these programs provide for today's fire service. And I just want to say thank you. Humble to be a part of it.
Thanks
Absolutely,
for making the fire
Richard.
service a better place. We appreciate you.
Richard, thank you very much again. And hey, John, as we kind of move here to the next segment, what's going on next week? What do we got?
Yeah, so next week it'll be actually episode number 20, believe it or not. So 20 weeks into this already, which is wild. I will say this: we may be having some giveaways going into what'll be a holiday weekend. So for anybody that was part of was it July 3rd? We had Jason Patton. We did some giveaways with fire department coffee and some other things, and just wanted to let you guys know we're going to be doing some more giveaways again. So I hope you guys share this and decide to come back, because it should be a good one. So
yeah, you can't miss that, man. You can't miss giveaways. So share the show, and check us out. You can actually we now have our own page, the Jump Seat, up on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook and you're following us, go check out the Jump Seat. You can actually see all the historical episodes here over the past 19 now, or 18, and then 19 today, on there, as well as IDEX Fire and Safety, Hale Products, Akron Brass, Hearst Jaws of Life.
And I always want to tell everybody as well, if you've got other folks that would be good to have in the Jump Seat, we know that there are many great people out there that could help further this message. Let us know. Put it in the comments. Let us know. We're happy to do that. It's always interesting bringing new people in and learning new things.
Absolutely. And, we love seeing the comments. They actually pop up in front of us in our dashboard here as we're watching the show. So if you have comments, make them during the show. We'll try to answer any questions as things come up as well. So once again, thank you to Richard Ray. John, always great seeing you. And hopefully everything works smooth here in the future as I still continue to batter thunderstorms in my backyard.
Thanks, everybody.
Till next week. Thanks, guys.